You are here to be you and to remain being you as a unique expression of the source. And if you stay true to yourself, then you will attract people who are in resonance with who you are becoming.
Hi, Mila. Thank you very much for coming. For everybody who doesn't know Mila, please go check her out. She's an amazing evolutionary astrologer. I have an opportunity to have a reading with her. Yes, we astrologers also have reading with other astrologers because you need sometimes somebody else's eyes and a different approach because there's so many approaches in astrology. And Mila's approach is very, very amazing. Direct, tells you a bunch of information. And that's why I wanted to have her today to tell us more about her work. What is this evolutionary astrology? Why is she using that? And what is happening? For me, it's like a story of a soul. That's how I find it. It's beautiful. Mila, please go ahead and tell us why evolutionary astrology? Why did you choose that? And why is it so appealing to you?
Thank you for the lovely introduction. It was definitely a pleasure to connect. And yeah, definitely everybody's got a blind spot, including astrologers. Just because we know the trade, it doesn't mean that we know it all. I started studying astrology only 3 years ago, which is surprising for a lot of people to hear, because for me, it's a skill that I'm remembering. I'm 100% convinced that this is something I was doing in past lives. I do have my rule of the 12th house, which is Saturn with my South Node. And they are in a new phase conjunction. But I did study astrology first with Lada Doncheva, who is the lady I work for at the moment. It's interesting how things come full cycle. And actually, the things really started opening up for me when I came across evolutionary astrology, because I am very Scorpionic with Pluto in Scorpio. And the traditional astrology didn't give me all the answers I was seeking, because I always have a lot of questions. As people can tell, I have my Mercury in Aries. I work a lot, and
that's beautiful. That it gives me information, right? As a Gemini, I like that. It gives me information.
I mean, my Mercury is in the 3rd house, so it's like Mercury Aries, a lot of talking. But yeah, it was really when I came across evolutionary astrology that something just clicked for me, because traditional astrology is quite polarizing in many cases. You know, Saturn is bad, Mars is bad, all these squares are bad. Most of my clients are interested in astrology. They are astrology enthusiasts, and some of them are professionals themselves. They kind of have fear about this because they say, oh, I have this and this in my chart. Does it mean I'm never going to find love? Or does it mean this? Or does it mean that? I'm like, no, because every planet is a polarity.
I agree with you completely. I'm also always on the optimistic side, and every chart has possibilities, opportunities, and potential in every aspect. Right?
Exactly. And everything is got polarity, because we are in this three-dimensional reality on the planet Earth where there is a lot of polarity, duality going on. And everybody knows that every planet has some positive offerings and some more challenging offerings. But at the end of the day, it's up to us how we use the energy, because the planets, they don't do anything. They don't make us do anything. They just offer energy, and then it's up to us how we use that energy. So astrology definitely removed that polarizing aspect of astrology for me, which is why I like it so much.
No, it's amazing. For me, I'm more of a psychology astrologer, but this for me was listening to a story of why my soul chose this body, this lifetime. It was so amazing. It's literally a story of your soul and where you're going and where you were, and how to use this in a great, great way. So tell me, where does evolutionary
Pluto is the soul's desire for incarnation. So literally, Pluto is why we're here, because Neptune represents the source. Pisces, the 12th archetype, is the infinity of everything there is, the source. So we come from the source. It's like the ocean and wave metaphor. You have the ocean, and we all part of the ocean. And then when the soul decides to go and have a human experience, it's like the wave, like individual wave for a time while it lasts, and then we go back to the source. So Pluto is the desire why we come here. And of course, a lot of that is karmic, because many times when people have near-death experience, they experience the 360 degree of, how we impacted other people, like by what we said and what we've done. It's not just like, okay, this is how it sounded to me, but how it impacted everybody else. So then we decide, okay, well, I want to correct it. Or if the soul went through a lot of disempowering experiences, the soul wants to come back and take its power back. Also, how many people are saying that we all been everything and experience everything from every angle, because that's what helps the soul to have a totality of the experience. Again, Pisces, the totality of what came before. So definitely Pluto is the soul's desire, and then the karmic nodes, the lunar nodes, the South Node and the North Node, are how the soul navigates. The South Node is where we came from. In many cases, our early environment of our upbringing reminds reminds us of the past life's conditioning. So in many cases, if it reminds us of what we want to move away from, we can never completely make it go away because it's where we came from. It's part of us, our experience, but we are in a sense upgrading it. Like, okay, we are born into the family where there is some certain pattern, ongoing pattern, which in many cases could be either dysfunctional or outdated. And then this soul comes, in this case, you, I, whoever, your baby, and it says, okay, I have the tools to make it better. And that's pretty much what we came here to do. And then the North Node is the evolutionary potential. But again, it's up to us how we're going to use it. So nothing is ever guaranteed because we have the free will that helps us to wriggle.
We might not do the purpose of what our soul is intended in this lifetime. That's why we go back and redo it, because sometimes we are not ready or we are not doing the work, right? Or we just don't know. As we talked in our session, people just are not aware. So that's why they're repeating the same patterns, lifetime to lifetime. For some people, it's very hard to change their minds. I always think about fixed charts. Oh my God, like how are you going to explain, all this fixed, energy that they need to do something new? So what is your approach? How do you feel that evolutionary astrology can help people just to open up their minds and be aware more of what they need to do?
It depends where people are at on their path, because there's no right and wrong. There is just what is right for you at this particular stage in your life. So I feel when people are ready to make a change, then they will find the tool that can help them. In this case, it could be evolutionary astrology, it could be tarot, it could be human design, it could be whatever if it's anything. So it's literally when your life gets to the point due to the repetition of these patterns that we don't want to experience anymore, where we decide it's enough. For example, I can share my experience like attracting certain type of relationships, and I'm sure that this is a lot of girls can resonate with that to a certain extent, or a certain part of their lives where they feel I keep attracting all this the same man, it looks different, he's got different name, but he's the same guy, the same outcome, the same broken heart, the same like feeling of being used, at the end of it and all this kind of stuff. So, the only constant in that relationship is obviously me. So, like I keep attracting all these guys, but I'm the only constant, right? So then it's the opportunity to think about, okay, so what creates this outcome, right? And then it gives the opportunity to change the pattern, right? And then I know when
it's not easy. I mean, doing things differently and breaking from the old structures and way of thinking and going different way, it's hard, guys. It's hard work. It's hard psychologically, emotionally, physically, sometimes depends, but it's necessary to evolve, right? So I like that. And we have a question. What is Mila's view of Pluto conjunct ascendant ruling North Node in Scorpio?
So Pluto is in the first house.
The IOC
conjunct ascendant.
Yes.
Well, there is definitely the desire for new direction, because when Pluto is in the first house, there is always a new cycle beginning. And of course, if Pluto is with the North Node, that's like a double whammy, because the North Node is very moving towards, and then it depends if it's a closing or new conjunction, like which side is what on, because of course the nodes move in the opposite direction. So whether it's a new phase conjunction or a closing balsamic conjunction, in which case, if it's a balsamic, we would have to go through certain experiences of the past incarnation to remind us like, okay, this is what I'm moving away from. And then if it's the new phase conjunction, then we are more ready to move into this direction. But there is an insecurity, because with the closing phase, there is a totality of understanding what this represents, this conjunction. So in a sense, it's familiar. Like it might not be comfortable, it might be even painful, but it's familiar. Like, what they say, the devil So it's something that we naturally like magnetize towards. And then if it's a new phase conjunction, that there is a lot of insecurity, because it's like I'm moving into this new direction and I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where I'm going, but there is not the desire to go back to the old. There is a desire to move away from it.
She says there's mutual reception between Venus and Pluto also in the first house. So Venus is there as well.
In which way? Is Pluto in Scorpio?
Yeah, I would say yes.
Like for these abstract things, I really need to see the chart.
As I understand, and from your reading as well, from our consultation and from what you're telling us now, embracing the North Node and really understanding is crucial, right?
Well, the North Node, it depends whether there is a skip step.
What does that mean?
The planet squaring the nodes, because, a lot of time we have what we call T-square, that there are two planets in opposition, and at the precipice of the square is a planet, right? Like there is like 3 planets and 2 are in opposition and 1 is squaring 2 of them. So that's what we call T-square. But if the precipice of the T-square is a planet squaring the nodes, if the 2 things in opposition are the nodes, and then there is a planet squaring the nodes, and for some people it could be with stellium. I've experienced that also. The skip step represents some archetype in your life, certain theme that has been not developed, that the soul couldn't focus on it very well. So many times I can see Jupiter is quite often skip step. I mean, it obviously depends on people's chart, people's experience. Moon, quite often I see Moon being the skip step, which is like kind of the case of mistaken identity, where due to conditioning, we become certain version of ourselves, which is actually not the authentic version of who we are. But because our conditioning, our upbringing, our environment shapes us to a certain extent, and then there is the push and pull between Aries and Libra. Like, am I who I want to be, or am I who the other person expects me to be? So the skip step is if the planet is squaring the lunar node, and if there is a skip step, and if it's pointing towards the south node, then we have to resolve the past first. If it's pointing towards the north node, then usually south node, like the past is part of the future in a sense. So it really depends on everything else that's going on in a chart, also on the houses, the signs. The houses are the karma, the signs is how the planets are behaving. So yeah, if there is a skip step, then it's not as easy as getting from A to B. Like, okay, this is where I'm coming from, this is where I'm getting to. But if there is a skip step, there is something that needs to be resolved in order to get there.
So that's a crucial part of evolving in this life, right? We'll talk about what is happening right now with the North Node in Aries and South Libra. What is it from an evolutionary astrology perspective? What do you see for globally for us? What is happening? How can we use this energy, and what's going on?
Like the point of these two nodes is that they are being squared by Pluto, and that is something that's occurring for the entire year, with the difference that until July 17th, the resolution node was the south node in Scorpio. So it was pointing us towards where we still feel disempowered or afraid to embody our sense of self-empowerment. And now it's pointing towards Libra. So that's our relationship. So it's like kind of like, okay, now you experience where you feel disempowered, and now who is behind it? Like, where did it come from? Where did we externalize our power? Where did we allow the environment to condition us to the point where we stop trusting ourselves, where we actually look out to someone else to tell us how to live our life? Because Pluto has been in Capricorn for the past 15 years, and Capricorn is all about authority, emotional maturity. So it's like, again, do we trust, the government to make us feel safe? Do we trust, whoever to keep us feel safe? And of course, like we always will need someone, because we are social creatures and we cannot all live on deserted islands and just meditate on the top of the mountains or like this is not usually the path for majority of people, even though it is for some. Literally, what it is that condition us to the point where we find ourselves at, and is it like making us feel unsafe at this degree? So it's like literally with this Pluto in Capricorn, it's showing us that what has kind of become outdated in our society, in our structure. And now Saturn, as the ruler of Capricorn, is going through Pisces. So now for the upcoming 3 years, because it will be there until I think February 2026, this is the opportunity to acknowledge what it is and let it go, because it no longer holds a meaning. So Pluto squaring the nodes through, like obviously now at the moment it's in the sign of Capricorn until the end of the year, because it's not going to move on into Aquarius until January. And Pluto is squaring the nodes, and the resolution is the south node, pointing towards our relationships. Because, where is our power? Where has it gone? Who did we believe more than we believe and trusted ourselves? And Venus currently is in retrograde. Venus as the ruler of the south node, and Venus retrograde in Leo is helping us to reevaluate what holds a sense of purpose for us. Like, what did we come here to do? Because Leo is all about creative self-actualization. So are we actually showing up in our authentic colors and doing what we love, or are we still being afraid because of what other people will think or say about us?
So you also think that for individuals, we have like our souls are evolving, but also as humanity, we're evolving as well. You can look at through evolutionary astrology how we as humans are going forward as humanity. That's what you're saying.
It's the process of individuation, because once Pluto moves into Aquarius, and we know it's going to have one more retrograde into Capricorn next year in summer, and then as of fall next year, it's going to be full stream ahead until 2044. It's going to dip its toes first time in Pisces, I believe, in 2043. And then 2044 is fully going to go into Pisces. So for 20 years, we're going to have Pluto transiting through the sign of Aquarius. And now Aquarius is the planet of individuation, liberation, freedom, sovereignty. And it doesn't mean that now everybody's going to be like, okay, I don't need anyone else anymore. But in order to connect with the people that actually will respect you and love you for who you are authentically, and not try to project their unmet needs onto you and try to change you so you fulfill their unmet needs, there is this need for us to, as of, for the past 18 months until July, we had the North Node going through the sign of Taurus. So that was trying to help us to understand our needs, our values, our relationship towards ourselves, so that we discovered that what actually matters to us, because in past 18 months, we had all these problems with resources and all these, the external environment gave us the opportunity to reevaluate and decide what actually really matters. And now with the North Node going through the sign of Aries and the ruler is still in sign of Virgo, which is all about learning and adjusting, discerning and gathering information and making efficient decisions based on what we find. With this North Node in Aries, it's all about, okay, what do you want? Now that you know that what matters to you, and for sure, there's going to be extreme situation where some people will go completely extreme the other way, like now it's all about me. Like people might become selfish and self-centered because we have been suppressed as a human collective for such a long time that it's been extreme in that way. And now with the North Node in Aries, there is very likely going to be the other extreme until eventually, when the North Node moves into Pisces, it will be the point of healing. Because in my personal humble opinion, North Node in Pisces will be the opportunity for closing this Pisces age conditioning of making people feel inferior, not good enough. And, all this Virgo in a lower vibration conditioning where just because we're human and we are inherently imperfect because the source is expressing itself through our uniqueness, which is, by some people's standards not considered perfect, but what is perfect? Who decides what is the definition of perfection? So I believe that by the time North Node moves into Pisces, which actually North Node will be still in Pisces when all these big changes will happen, the planets moving in 2026, all of them one after the other, including Chiron into Taurus. By then, I think the energy will be completely different. And the preparations for that is what we're just going through right now. North Node in Aries. Who are you before everybody else projected onto you who they wanted you to be? Just like with your son, he's little, so he has much stronger sense of self because the environment didn't get there first. The schooling system, the teachers, all these people that have expectations from us. So it's kind of like going back to the clean slate of when we were kids and who were we back then.
Absolutely. I'm just listening. I'm soaking all this energy in. It's amazing. It does feel like a closure. It does feel with all this Pluto last degree of Capricorn and with this, finding out who we are and, just closing this before we move to a new reality. That's how I feel the next couple of years, right? It's all about, closing stuff and figuring out, putting an end to many things and starting anew as a collective, as humanity, which I can't wait, to be honest. I think all this conditioning, as you said, the way we're brought up and all these religions, I have to mention, I'm sorry, but it's just putting us all down in a way that we are not able to be who we are. And, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to do this, this is the way it's done, and stuff like that. Who is the authority to tell us that, right? So I completely agree. Amazing information.
And I mean, very clearly reflected by the Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, because Pisces is about the ending. And before the new beginning, the Aries, there is always Pisces. So we have to create space for something new to come in. But in order for that to be able to come in, first we have to realize what is the conditioning and what no longer holds a meaning and be ready to let it go. And this is, as you mentioned at the beginning, it's not an easy process because all this Saturn, all this Capricorn, it kept us safe, for many, many incarnations. This kind of living life by being told what to do and what to believe and all that, it served its purpose. There were incarnations where we were part of the system. You and I, we were probably part of, conditioning people because everybody was everything at some point. So that's why the dissolving, as we are tapping into, is part of that story, because in order for something new to be birthed, something else has to let go.
I'm very cruel. It has to die.
Transcend it.
Yeah, I was thinking about caterpillar, it kind of dies to become a butterfly, like transforms, not completely dies, but it becomes a new thing. That's for me. Always when I think about Pluto, transformation, I always think about butterfly and caterpillar. Somebody mentioned indoctrination. Yes, we were. And I do feel that many people learning astrology in the last couple of years, the last 3 or 4 years, there's a rise of astrology. And I think it's beautiful. It's preparing us actually for the new age, for the Aquarian times, giving people power back, I would say, from all this conditioning, right? So I encourage everybody to explore astrology in any way they want, to have readings with many different astrologers, learn, read. I think it's beautiful. You don't have to be an astrologer, but just, to have the knowledge, some kind of knowledge of astrology, it can empower you immensely. That's how I feel.
that will be part of the curriculum at some point in the future, where everything will change because the whole system, including the educational system, has to be changed because it's outdated. Because you can even see with the children that are born now, people who have these little Pluto Capricorns, including yourself, these children, they are very different. I mean, already when we were little, the system was not quite suited for us, but they still try to fit us in a box, and a lot of us did manage to squeeze in some way or another, or were being told dyslexic or dysfunctional or whatever personality disorder or whatever label they want to put on it. But children coming in this new star state, they are completely different frequency, and they will not be conditioned. You know, these boss babies that are being born now, you cannot fit them in a box, or if you try to, then that's why there are so many kids on antidepressants, because people try to suppress who they really are, and they cannot be conditioned because they are completely different star seeds, mostly Arcturians really. So the whole educational system will have to change. And also, like now, these new kids that will be born, Pluto Aquarius states, there's no way these kids can be conditioned in the way they still manage to condition us. It's impossible. So yeah, in order to have healthy children, we'll have to change the school system.
I'm just thinking about how many mental health issues we're talking about and what is actually happening. Society is labeling mental health problems to people who don't want to fit in their box. I highly agree that many people are actually just want to be free and express themselves. If they don't fit, or you're mentally not put, or as you said, much of this ADHD or whatever, just put some kind of a label to it, which is awful. I like what you said about Pluto generation changing the world. So can you just go back, please, for our followers to give them a few notes about what is Pluto and Libra generation means, what does Pluto and Scorpio generation means, because I think it's a very good, from evolutionary astrology point of view, generationally, what changes can we expect?
Well, I mean, I don't want to really dish the Pluto Virgos. Yeah, but there are still, I'm sure there are followers. There are Pluto Virgo generation that's like our parents' generation, and even before the Pluto Leos. I don't know how many Pluto Cancers there are still around, but you know, every generation has something to offer. And every generation also has something to learn, right? So especially as I just spoke to my very good friend, I feel that Pluto Libras and Pluto Scorpios, because a lot of Pluto Scorpios are still conditioned because of the house cast rule by Pluto Libra, especially those of us with early Pluto degrees like myself. So we are the bridge generation, because in a sense, this generation that came before us, Pluto Leo and Pluto Virgo, people that are now retired or almost retired, they, to my personal opinion, and I want to put disclaimer, this is just my opinion. I'm not saying this is a universal truth, because I don't intend to trigger people. Pluto Virgo and Pluto Leo, I feel they have a choice. They have a choice to decide, okay, I want to evolve, or no, I don't want to evolve. I'm too old. I just want to carry on as what I always knew, and that's it. I just want to pass on and come back as a different version of my soul. You know, maybe being a complete rebel, whatever, and each to their own, and there is no right and wrong. But I feel, again, personal opinion, that us Pluto Libras and Pluto Scorpio, we have no choice, because we are too young to go, I don't care and I don't need to change, because now under the influence of Pluto and Aquarius in 20 years transit that we are facing next year, we have no choice. We literally either change or we will not survive, because of everything, all these energies that are streaming through, all these high vibrational energies. And that's why so many of us, especially us sensitive, are having the dark night of the soul. All this unresolved trauma, all these fears and things that we don't even know where they're coming from, because many of them are not even ours. They are our ancestors, our grandmothers, that they didn't have the choices and opportunities and resources we have now. So they pass on the baton. Genetically, everything's been passed on to us, you know? So it's like literally, we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice, because it's we either adjust and evolve and take our power back, or it's going to get very, very hard. And God knows what that's going to take us. So I really feel that we are the transitional generation, Pluto Libras and Pluto Scorpios, and we have to change for the sake of the children. You know, your baby and the ones that are teenagers now, Pluto Sagittarius and Pluto Capricorns, and then upcoming generation Pluto Aquariuses, because these children have completely different karma. The Pluto Sagittarius, they came here to create a completely different perception of reality. As we know, all these teenagers, they are very much more open-minded, especially when it comes to sexuality. And, you know, these kind of things, they are not judgmental. They just, everything goes, you know, and that's perfectly fine, because again, there was so much suppression that now perhaps it's going to the other extreme by maybe being too open with things, but it has to be that way, because we need to find a balance. Because even I just came back from visiting my family. There, I have experienced how conditioned they were, and like even sexually suppressed, and everything is sin, everything is bad, you should feel guilty and ashamed. Whereas now we have Pluto Sagittarius, and they go, what you talking about? You know, everybody's doing that or whatever. And and we just finding a balance. That's all it is. We are just trying to find balance. And Pluto Capricorns, they're going to be the new leaders. So they need us, Pluto Libras and Pluto Scorpios, to do the work, because these kids have other much higher goals to do than transmute our grandparents' karma. They don't have time for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. We had a consultation, just opened my eyes on what I need to do and what I actually felt that I need to do, as you said, changing the karma, not just for ourselves and future generations, but also for ancestry from before. We are changing the bloodline. It goes both ways. As I said in our reading, I want to make it stop. This is the life. I'm going to make this stop.
And everything on 29 degrees, each house started on 29 degrees. I mean, come on. Is this one? For sure is this life.
Yeah, embrace it. This is the hard work. It's on me and I'll do it. Embrace it. It's also believing your child, guys. It doesn't have to be easy, but if you embrace it, it's easier because you understand, oh, this is what my purpose is. It's just easier. Intuitively, you feel it, that it's the right way to go. Do you have any opinion on Saturn and Pisces, just quickly?
Saturn and Pisces is dissolving the structure, but it's also giving us the opportunity for healing, because Pisces is a healing sign. Virgo and Pisces, they are both archetypes of healing. Virgo usually is the healer. People with a lot of Virgo or the nodes in Virgo, Pisces, or Pluto in Virgo or Pisces or 6th and 12th house, these are people that naturally want to help. They understand what is dysfunctional in a society where things just gone the completely wrong way, especially when it comes to animals, the environment, nutrition. These kind of people are very sensitive to these kind of things, and they want to make a world a better place that they found it. And Virgo Pisces archetype are all about healing. Mars, as a ruler of the North Node, is in Virgo. Mercury is currently in Virgo. It's going to go retrograde soon, so it's going to help us even deeper to reevaluate things. And Pisces, Saturn in Pisces is doing two functions, just as I said to you during our reading, is giving us the opportunity to let go of that which is now dissolving because it lost meaning, it's no longer resonating with who we are becoming and the direction we're moving towards, North Node in Aries. But at the same time, it's helping us to call the fragments of our soul back because of the conditioning, because we were being told that this aspect of your personality is not acceptable, especially like girls, don't talk so much, don't talk loud, don't do this, don't do that, la, 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 la.
Girls, shh. Like, okay, so if I say what I want to say, my opinion, then I'm a bad girl. What is, like...
Polarizing and labeling, and then how many women then have problem to speak up? When they grown up, they have a problem to express themselves. They have problem to talk about their needs. And then they usually get cheated on or betrayed, or people put too much on their desk at work because they can't say no, because they're afraid to say no, because we were being told you have to put other people's first, you have to be a good girl and help other people and stuff. And a lot of times it's at our own expense. And then what about me, because especially with the strong Libra people, is this desire to fit in, desire to connect, Libra is the bridge, is the connection. And it likes being in a relationship, but sometimes people compromise. And I mean, it's so funny with the English language, how so many spells are hidden in the word itself. Compromise, you compromise yourself by compromising. So it was never about compromise. It was about finding the balance. Like, this is who I am. And yes, I'm here to grow and evolve, but I'm not here to change for anyone. You are here to be you and to remain being you as a unique expression of the source. And if you stay true to yourself, then you will attract people who are in resonance with who you are becoming. So Saturn in Pisces is giving us the opportunity to call these aspects of ourselves which we had to reject and dissolve prior to us being conscious many times. And now is the opportunity. What did you like to do when you were little? Did you like to paint or sing or dance? And they told you, hey, that's a waste of time. Go and do something useful. Idle hands and all that kind of things. Again, the religious conditioning. And maybe we had to suppress aspect of ourselves which would have been the very important aspect of us finding our purpose, because it's all Leo, the creativity, the inner child. It's actually the path towards our sense of purpose and destiny. And that's unique for you. And that's why with this North Node in Aries is the opportunity to rediscover that, to actually put yourself first and observe. Like with the Jupiter in Taurus, you are your own study case for this year. It doesn't matter where Jupiter is in your chart. Jupiter is in Taurus. You are studying yourself and your needs. And with the North Node in Aries, just go after what attracts you, what drives you in.
Absolutely, 100%. This is amazing. It would be good if you learn more, knowing more about raising awareness helps you with your path. Do you often see squares to nodes in natal charts?
More often than not. Not in every chart, but more often than not. But then again, it's perhaps the people that are attracted to me for reading. With the clients that I have, it's more often people do have squares to the nose that they don't, but it's not like everybody has it. Not everybody has it, but The squares to the note is always something that got suppressed in a past life, something that was underdeveloped. And majority of us unfortunately had that story. So it's just figuring out what is it, what aspects of our experience, whether in this early lifetime experience or previous incarnations, was suppressed because we had no choice. This is Gabor Mate's work. With every child, there are two needs, and that's a need for authenticity and need for attachment, need for connection, for survival. And a little child will always choose to survive rather than to be authentic. So it will suppress its needs for authenticity in order to create the connection with the mother, father, or whoever is around to keep the child safe. And that in many cases takes many years and many years of therapy to uncover what that was.
What orbs do you use for these squares?
For all the major aspects, we use 10 degrees. With the sextiles and in conjunction, I think it's 5, but it depends which planet is making it, because if Pluto is squaring the nodes, you go for 15, because Pluto is so important. Then if Pluto is the one squaring the nodes, you use 15-degree orb, but most of the time with major aspects, it's 10 degrees, like squares, trines, and oppositions. Yeah.
I love squares. It makes you work and grow, and this is what you need to do in this life. So squares are good.
This is another thing that I love about evolutionary astrology, that actually the challenging aspects are perceived as the positive aspects. And this is what always kind of baffled me when I started studying evolutionary astrology. I was like, why do we always talk about squares as a good thing, right? Because, in traditional astrology, something to fear, but that's because it helps you to grow. Because if things are easy, like with trines, why would we want to check it easy? It just comes, right? But then again, something that is a trine now might have been a square in a past life. So people might think like, oh yeah, this is easy for me, but it doesn't mean that it was always easy. So that's why sometimes people might even feel guilty for something being easy for them in their incarnation. But I was like, no, you work towards it. You deserved it. You worked towards it in your past life. Nothing ever just falls on our lap. And yeah, if again we will just be too complacent with that, then it might become square again. And with the squares, it always creates tension that's allowing us to grow. So squares and oppositions are good, because opposition is a point of integration. It's something that, what did we learn in the past 180 degrees? Just like with the full moon, new moon analogy, new moon is the conception point. And when you have a full moon, when is the sun and moon in opposition 6 months later, what have you learned in the 6 months that you didn't know 6 months ago, and now you can integrate it into your experience?
Absolutely. It's a beautiful story, guys. I just love astrology. I can talk all. Mila, thank you very much. I know you're busy and I don't want to hold you more. You gave us so many things to think about, to ponder upon, so much knowledge. I highly recommend any of you to have a reading with Mila, because you see how much information she has, and that's how she's in a reading. Dive into evolutionary astrology, get a reading, learn more, explore your purpose and your path, embrace North Node in Aries, find yourself, and good luck to everybody. Mila, I appreciate your time and knowledge, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you everyone for listening.